Good morning, everybody. Master Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Episode 50, Mestre Vibes podcast. Before I start anything, I want to give a huge shout out to Gojira in Thailand, Adam in Australia, Zumbi in New York, to all the people who have been with me since day one of starting this podcast last year. You guys mean the world to me. Most of all, I want to give a big shout out to my amazing wife who supports me in everything I have done. I have a very special message today, so I hope you guys are listening. As I've mentioned from the beginning, my Patreon is to support me as an artist and to support everything I do outside of teaching capoeira classes. I teach about 16 classes a week. My goal was to get to a certain point, a milestone, which is 50 podcasts. And this is it today, marks the 50th. And what I've decided to do, because I've gotten so much good feedback, so many good comments about my podcast, that I will now go back from podcast number 1 and I will make them public. And from now on, these podcasts will be public. They will be open to everyone. If you're a Patreon member, don't worry, because you guys will always have all the extra stuff that I do and always have that satisfaction that you are directly supporting what I do. However, I really feel that I've gotten so much good feedback about the things that I'm doing that I feel it's important that I, as a mestre of capoeira, take a position of where I'm trying to help and mentor and hopefully, what do they call it now, life coach a lot of other people, whether they're in capoeira or not. So I'm going to go back to episode 1 today and I will click open to the public. So anyone, anywhere from now on will be able to listen to my podcast directly. If you guys would like to become members of my Patreon community, please do. There's a lot of things that are part of it, updates, backgrounds, a lot of things that I do outside of the podcast, classes, teaching, so many wonderful things, and you directly support all the community events that I do. Check out the Patreon page. There's so many things going on. If you'd like to support me, jump on. It is something that helps a lot because Patreon helps to support, as I said, everything outside of what I do. So all podcasts will now be available to everybody. Today's podcast, I'm going to jump right into it because I got a request about how I'm always talking about the importance of defining what is success as a capoeira master. So today's podcast will be how I define what is success for me. So as I mentioned, when I was in the MBA program over at the MBA classes, I don't want to say I was in the program, I was in the classes at Waseda. Brilliant teacher of mine said, Dr. Higashi Sensei said, you need to define what is success. And it's taken me a long time. And he says, if you don't define it, then you're basically just running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to get something. You know, like people say, what is success? Well, a lot of money. Well, how much money? I cannot tell you an exact number of what is success for me because I have to do that. I have a partner who runs with me and we do things and we're defining that as we go, but it's getting better and better. But I will give you guys some, milestones, ideas, let's say some signs of what it means to be a success as a mestre of capoeira. So if you guys are listening today, you'll hear how I define success for myself as a mestre capoeira. And I wrote down some notes, so I hope you guys like it. And here we go. First, what is success? The first and most important thing to have success as a capoeira master, I think this is something that always affected me, especially now in modern times when you're looking at so much social media. When you can look at your social media and have positive anxiety, not negative anxiety. And what do I mean? Negative anxiety is when you look at your homepage, or you look at your Facebook status, or you look at your Instagram, or you look at your TikTok, or you look at your whatever you're using, and you feel like it's not complete, or it's not making enough money, or it's not doing what it needs to do, or you ask people to help you and it's not working out. That's negative anxiety when it comes to looking at what you do on social media. And I take this as a number one because it's such a big part of everybody's life nowadays. When I look at my screens and I refresh them, like for example, I'll look at my Instagram, or I'll look at my Facebook, or I'll look at my YouTube, or I'll look at my Patreon, or anything, and it's always positive things coming back to me. And the only time I feel anxiety is when I want to say positive anxiety, because I'm a person who's constantly doing, constantly moving. So I feel positive anxiety to create. I wake up in the morning, I kiss my wife, and I got things I gotta do. She knows I'm a morning person, so she just smiles, kisses me back, and she knows that I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna hit the shower, I'm gonna get up, and I'm gonna start creating, I'm gonna start doing, I'm gonna keep going. There's so many things that are out there that I'm like I'm a wave of emotion, creativity, and positivity, and I wanna just get the day started. And I always feel this anxiety that if I'm not moving forward, I'm moving backwards, because there's always other people moving past me. And that's a positive thing, because I feel, for me as a master, I'm constantly doing my best to move forward. So when I refresh any social media or look at my homepage, there's always little things that I can update. But the core of everything I do, I feel happy about. I feel content. I feel I'm doing everything in a correct, organized, professional, and holistically good place as a master, coming from a good place as a master. So I really feel fantastic. One of the best feelings is when I open up, I'm going to say, because outside of Capoeira, the only source of money coming in is through this Patreon. So when I refresh it, you have a new member, that really just sends me, I don't care if it's a $3 member, $5 member, whatever level you're doing, every single bit hits me right in my heart and soul. And I know that you guys are taking time out to do it. This is not a call to join right now. It's just saying that when I refresh it and there it is, wow, this is working, this is going good, this is positive. Even when sometimes people stop supporting, that's fine. I know everybody's at different places in their life, and because of my ability to do what I do, teaching in my academia, and that's supporting everything I do, my family, my daughter's education, and everything for my kids, everything for my wife, everything for my community, that I can actually support all that from Capoeira, that the Patreon becomes something outside. So it's a nice little, in Japanese say plus alpha, something, how can I say, extra, that just really hits me and makes me feel a lot better inside and creatively, because I feel people are directly supporting what I do as an artist and a cultural educator. A next point that I would say is when you realize as a Capoeira master that you're doing just as good or even better than a lot of the masters, or, in my case, masters I used to idolize, right? Wow, this master, let's say some of the bigger groups, and you'd be like, wow, that master has groups all over the world. But then as you go through the Capoeira process, you start realizing that being the head of a giant group most of the time can be a headache, because you're dealing with a lot of egos, a lot of people who don't understand how to move professionally through work, and they see Capoeira as something that can be a little bit more informal, which is fine, but it should still be professional in my opinion. And I realized that I might only have 3 or 4 cookies in my hand. And some people might have, 500 cookies in their hands. But those 3, 4 cookies are mine, are perfect They're amazing. They're delicious. And it's me doing what I do without trying to overfill my plate with other people's situations, right? You can't take care of everyone. And as a capoeira master, you have to be incredibly dedicated to mentorship. And that's something that more and more I realize every day. More and more I realize I have to mentor people as best I can, and at the same time, listen to people who are mentoring me, such as Mestre Vibes, who constantly is a light and a beacon of experience and reflection for me. So I feel I'm doing a lot better than a lot of the people around me, and I don't mean that as a narcissistic or egotistical thing. It's just common sense. I'm looking, and I'm like, wow, that situation looks really challenging and difficult. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. Thirdly, let's jump into what I feel is super successful. Being organized in capoeira is the most important thing. I don't have to ask students anymore for pay your capoeira bills. When I first came to Japan, everything was in cash. And it took years, but now everything's organized, and it's either through Patreon or it's through, direct deposit. Here in Japan, they do that just like a sports center. And it makes things super comfortable and easy. Every month, I know exactly how much base money is coming in, and the ability to just show up to class, even when it's like raining, or sometimes we have like typhoons, hurricanes or large hurricanes. I don't want to say hurricane. Yeah, I guess hurricanes in English. Sorry, I've been in Japan for 25 years. When it rains too much or snows too much, and if people don't show up, that's okay. Every month, things are paid. So getting that financial organization for teaching capoeira is an incredibly good sign that you're being successful and that you have enough people to cover everything. When I was a kid, I used to think, I grew up poor, and I remember looking into the refrigerator, and most of the time it was empty until the 1st or 15th, which in the United States is when the welfare checks come in, because my family was on welfare. So I look at that, like, wow, a full refrigerator. But a full refrigerator also means a full healthy life. For example, my refrigerator at home is full, but also my academy refrigerator is full. And what I mean by that is that I've got a lot of good stuff here, and a lot of things are going on, and it's important to understand that your academia you need to invest into it. But I'll jump into that later because that's a separate point. But going to my house and seeing the refrigerator full, and knowing that my sons and my wife have, access to food, something that for me growing up was a lot of times very challenging. And it was always something that, like, I tell my kids, when they're like, Dad, what's the most painful thing you've had? And I said, there's nothing more painful than hunger pains. And if you ever had hunger pains from being poor, then you know what pain is. And a lot of times I can recognize that face when I see people, and I'm always trying to help people when I travel. I know it's, strange, but I can really feel a lot of times and remember how hard it was as a kid to not have a full refrigerator. So going home and having a full refrigerator, or having metaphorically a full refrigerator at my house, means that everything that my family needs, I can provide through as a capoeira master. So I provide for my family 100% as a capoeira master. The next point to success as a capoeira master, or in anything, is being at a point where you can invest in yourself and it's non-negotiable. What do I mean by investing in yourself and non-negotiable? It means that you are at a good point in life and you're stable. And all of this stuff comes back to being financially stable. So the main point of everything here is that you're financially stable. And I'm financially stable from capoeira, so I can tell you guys how I've reached my success and how it's moving forward. And what it means is, for example, over the last 3 months, I created somewhat of a soundproof room. It's not perfect. A little bit of sound still comes in, but I'm able to record this podcast here for you guys inside of my cool little sound room. I mean, it's fantastic. It took a lot of work, but I'm able to invest. For example, if I need a new microphone, I can get it. If I need a new computer, I can get it. If I need new investment in myself, for example, I want to take a music course, or I want to take the time. For example, time is the most valuable commodity that I have. I want to take the time to study samba songs. I want to take the time to go check out something that's going to improve me as a mestre or in my family. Then I'm at a point where I can afford to do that. And that's very important, because if you cannot invest in yourself on a non-negotiable situation, for example, okay, I really want to take this, let's say this online course, but I can't, maybe this year it's not feasible, so I'll wait till next year. I'm not there anymore. I can do it. And it all comes from Capoeira, so I'm really happy. Somebody said that, going back to the whole refrigerator thing, if you can walk into a grocery store and not worry about the cost of things, then you're pretty successful. So I just wanted to add that point, because I love it when my wife used to say, oh, I got this, it was on sale. Oh, I got this, it was on sale. And now she's able to just go in and get what she thinks is healthiest and best for us. And that is a blessing that I can never outgrow or overvalue or appreciate more than being able to just say, hey, look, let's go out for dinner tonight. And let's go as a family, let's talk, let's interact, or just, hey, let's pick up some pizza. A lot of times people, have to really budget, and I do too. But I'm at a point where not going crazy, but just having a little extra in life is not a challenge. Another important thing to being successful as a mestre, and this is something that I think is super important, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, and I know some people are going to say, well, I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that, I'd rather have this. But having my own academia space, a full-time Capoeira Academia, is probably the biggest sign I have to myself when I look in the mirror of what it is to be successful. I teach 16 classes a week. I have a space next week. Vivi's coming in, super professional samba dancer. She's going to be doing a workshop here. Next month, we have a cafe area space, bar area, where in the Academia, we're going to have Marquinhos, a dear friend, play some samba music, and I'll be playing music alongside with him. We do the Halloween haunted house here. Last week, we did the carnival. About 200 people came through. Having my own space, and right here, it's not in the center of Tokyo, which is fine, but it's perfect for me, and it's grown to be a very energetic and colorful space. Every single time someone comes here and they walk through my doors, they always say, or not always, most people say, wow, it's like, you're not in Japan, you're in Brazil. And I've worked so hard at creating my own space to being that way. And now, like, for example, my wife, a lot of people will say, my students say this, when they come here, it's an escape from all the hustle and bustle of working in an incredibly congested and busy city like Tokyo. So having my own space is a big marker of my own success as a capoeira mestre. Not everyone needs to have it. You don't have to have your own space, but for me, it's a marker for myself in success. As a part of that, another big marker of success is being able to make my own work schedule. I set the class times. I set my own schedule during the week. For example, right now, I set my time for recording this podcast. I set it to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I can say, hey, look, next Friday night on the 12th, no classes. I'm going to take a night off, and I set that. And because going back to having that stability, I'm able to do that. And that's a big marker. When you can affect and value your own time and organize your own time, especially to going to bed, right? My wife and I love this, is we don't have to set our alarm clocks. We are at a point, my wife and I, in our success and from what we've built here in Capoeira, that we don't have to set our alarm clock. It's rare that something happens that we have to, do something. Tomorrow, my wife is going hiking up some mountain. She loves hiking. She's amazing. And she's going, and she has to wake up at 5 a.m., so she'll set her alarm clock. But I cannot remember the last time I had to set my alarm clock to do anything, because a part of being a successful master is you can do that. Also because I have what I consider good time management skills, right? I know what time my classes are. I'm never late. People might say, oh, sometimes you're late. No, I'm never late, guys. I'm never late. I would say that when we had the restaurant, sometimes I was a minute or two late. And this always takes me back to something that was really interesting. People say, oh, you're late. They're so used to me being here 30 minutes early that sometimes people think I'm late. I'm not. I want to share a story that's pretty funny. A friend of mine, another master who teaches in the United States, when he hears this, he'll probably know who it is, but we were talking to him, and I said, hey, what time, because we got to the workshop that I was giving at the time when I was visiting, like literally a few minutes before class. And I was worried because I'm so used to showing up, 30 minutes, especially because mostly I teach kids. Kids will come early. So you have to be here. I don't really want the kids waiting outside. I want them to have a safe space, and that's also very important for me. But he says, but the master, he said, I don't want to say anything because everyone has a different way of doing things, but this is really impactful and made me think a lot. He said, his students pay for classes between, for example, 5 and 6:30. They don't pay for 4:55 to 5. So he opens his academia at 5 on the dot. He closes, the last student has to be out by 6:30. And I understand that because I've done rental studios, and you kind of have to do that where you rent a space and do it. But when it's my own academia, it's a little different. So a lot of times my students will say, like especially the kids, because they've got no filter. So they say, oh, Messi, you're late. I go, I'm here 10 minutes before class. Your parents pay if I look at it the way that my friend looks at it, said, I don't even need to be there until 1 second before class because they pay for this time. And I thought about that a lot, and I go, okay, if that works for you, that's fantastic. But for me, because I'm able to set my own schedule, and because I live from Capoeira, that I want to give the best teaching experience possible, the best customer service experience possible. For me, success is being able to set my schedule so that I can be here earlier and a little bit later to give my students the best overall customer service and learning experience possible. As a teacher, one thing you have to understand is that it's not just the time you're in front of the students, it's the time around it. That's why there was always the thing, if you teach 1 hour of something, you're actually prep and everything else is another hour, so double it. So if I teach about 19 hours a week, 18 hours a week, I'm actually teaching 40 more if you include that I have the time I use to clean, dust, prep things, make flyers, make events, everything else that I do, I usually work about 50 to 60 hours a week. Just doing this podcast, the prep for the notes took me an hour. So everything, takes time. After the podcast is done, I'll have to be able to edit it, upload it, write out the text, everything. All these different things, plus putting the social media out. All of these things, this one podcast of 20 or 30 minutes will take about 3 hours worth of work, maybe 4. And people generally don't think about that because they haven't tried it. But for me, being able to do this is an incredible sign of the power and the blessing that I have to master my own schedule, because things are blessed. And when I say blessed, I said I worked 25 years in Japan to get to where I am. And that's why I feel comfortable sharing this experience with you. And I'm hoping these experiences provide some kind of mentorship or inspiration for other people to get to their goals. Being able to set my own schedule is amazing, okay? Being able to pay for everything, my family, everything I do from Capoeira is the best. Having enough, constantly getting more Patreon people, I can do more, but the main part of my life is Capoeira, and this is what I do, and Capoeira pays for everything I need to do. The most important marker of success, I feel, as a Capoeira master, and it's something I'm really, really happy to talk about, is that I am at a point that I am successful enough in Capoeira that I can use extra resources or extra time and money to change someone else's life. In the past, my wife and I and my students, we've done so many charity events that it's crazy. I've talked before, and you'll hear us on other podcasts, over 20 years, my wife and I have given, upwards of $20,000 to $25,000 dollars worth over the last 20 years to charity. I was a really big donator for Kirimure, which was Mestre Accordion's charity. And it was something that we always had a really good feeling to help support. Moving forward, I will be involved in a new charity project that's in Madagascar. It's called Smile Madagascar, and it's one of my old students and someone here on Patreon who has also been with me from day one. And a big shout out to Nirina. I really want to help with your project. His project is literally, there's a unusually high amount of kids born in Madagascar due to genetic traits that have, is it cleft or cliff? I can't remember. Cleft lips, where they're born with like broken lips. And he's a plastic surgeon that was trained also here in Japan, and someone who I have a lot of love and respect for. And I'll be doing my best that'll be the main charity that I work with in the future. So if you're here on Patreon, when I create events, one of those events will be directly helping out kids in Madagascar who need surgery to fix certain the cleft lip. I don't explain, but I'll be putting more stuff up so you guys can see it. But that'll be the main charity that I'm going to be working towards in the future, if we can figure out the logistics, because sending money abroad is also strange. But Nirina is somebody that I've known for years and have a lot of respect, so I'm going to be really pushing for that in the future. And as I've mentioned, Contramestre Disco and I, he's my partner, like not only someone I consider amazing and to be one of the best friends I've ever had in my life, but he's also someone I work with a lot on different projects. And he and I and my wife have been supporting Mestres even after the pandemic was over. We're still supporting because we know how hard it is to be a Mestre of Capoeira. And every month I support Mestre Boa Gente and Disco. My wife and I, we support every month with his projects in Bahia, Brazil. And that's easily been over $4,000 or $5,000 over the last 3 or 4 years. So there's a lot of things that we do. I would say about 2,000. Let's be safe. But we support on a monthly basis his academia. And it's really important because I feel success as a capoeira master means that you can help other people because you understand how hard it is. The next, and almost I'm going to drop probably to the last point because there's so many different things that are going on. But the last point is when you've gotten to a point as a capoeira master and you don't need to worry about the end of the month coming or the beginning of the month where you know all the bills are paid, where you know you can get new equipment. I bought brand new weight training equipment for my kids. My sons have their friends coming over and one of them's into rugby, not my son, but one of them's into bodybuilding. They're all getting in shape. My students have access to new gym equipment. And just like that, I go, okay, we're going to do it. Let's do it. I've been training again, getting my bench. I was able to bench 70 kilos. It's been a while. I remember when I was young, before being married and kids, my max was, I think, 100 kilos, 2 reps. I think I almost died, but that was my max. Now I'm just trying to get really fit, especially because I'll be 53 and I have so many wonderful things to do. And if you can forget at the end of the month that you need to worry about money and just focus on teaching capoeira, then like anything, I think you're a really successful capoeira teacher. Guys, this has gone on a little bit longer than I planned, but this is what the podcast is. As I mentioned, from now on, I'll go back and I'll release all the podcasts to be public. So anyone can listen to any of the podcasts if you just come onto my Patreon page. A couple of Patreon members have raised their monthly contribution from $3 to $5, $5 to $10, $10 to $25, and a couple people have raised from $25 to $50. And I can't tell you guys how grateful I am because all of this goes to all the projects that I do. As I've said in the past, this is me, like a mini nonprofit organization. All the Patreon money goes directly to producing everything I do outside of capoeira teaching classes, because that goes directly to my wife and kids for our life. But Patreon pays for everything else. So if you'd like to be a Patreon member, or if you'd like to upgrade, if you're doing $3 and you want to hit $5, that extra cup of coffee a month, go ahead. There's so many things I still want to do, but things that I can't do because as a professional capoeira master, I have to treat everything as a job. So there's a couple things I wanted to do this year that we just need a few more Patreon supporters. So if you want to support, join. As I mentioned, episodes 1 through 50, and from now on will be released to the general public. And you don't have to be a Patreon member to listen, but if you're a Patreon member, you get everything else I do. There's so much stuff in the background. I've been creating a lot of videos in Japanese, and I'm hoping to do more in Thai because that request came from Contramestre Cobrinha. And I'm going to keep doing this. I'm an educator, and I'm a successful capoeira master. Guys, I hope this podcast inspires you. I hope it gets you guys to think about how to organize your own lives, how to move forward, how to mentor. I'm here. Patreon members also get direct access to me mentoring. So if you have any questions or anything, let me know. Guys, if you can't afford to do Patreon, don't worry. This is my job. I have to put out the commercials, but just listen. And I hope that whatever I'm doing here gives you a positive reflection on your life. Thank you for joining me on episode 50, Mestre Vibes, Mestre Sukuri, Tokyo, Japan. Have lots of love, lots of peace, and lots of capoeira.